Good evening, everybody. We're going to get started here in just a minute. If you could find your seats. That got so quiet. Nice job. I have a couple of A students in the front row. Very good. Hello, everybody. My name is Dennis Agnes. I am a dad of two Healdsburg public school students. They are currently enrolled in grades 3 and 1. If my daughters were here, they're in childcare right now, but if they were here with me, they would tell you that they received their teachers of choice this year, Mrs. Harkey and Mrs. Hernandez, respectively. Honestly, both girls continue to very much enjoy their public school education experience here in Healdsburg, so thank you, HUSD. My partner, Christopher, and I are grateful for the support that our daughters receive each and every day from all of you. Tonight, though, I stand before you as the president of the board of the Healdsburg Education Foundation, or HEF, as it is commonly known in the community. And I extend a heartfelt welcome to each and every one of you. So thank you for being here at the 2018 Healdsburg School Board Candidate Forum. A couple of more thank yous. First, to the district for allowing us this big, beautiful space, for the equipment that we're using, to our students who are going to ask some questions and who are running our AV. We are recording this tonight, and it's going to be up online in a couple of days for the entire community to see if they could not be with us here tonight. Also, special thanks to AAUW in the back of the room for hosting their voter registration table and for soon to be helping us with questions. And finally, to our candidates who you're going to hear from in just a few minutes. So maybe a round of applause for everybody that helped tonight. I also have special thanks to our facilitator for tonight's forum, who I'm going to introduce to you in just a moment. However, before I do, and since I have the microphone and I am the representative of HEF, I am going to tell you just a little bit about the Healdsburg Education Foundation, so indulge me. We were founded back in 1985 when funding for enrichment programs was cut. That's right, those beautiful programs, art, music, and all the wonderful things that give our students a deep and enriching experience. HEF would not stand for such a loss, and we rallied the community to stay the programs. We won, and we have been winners ever since because of the generous and caring community in which we all live, Healdsburg, and for folks like you. HEF has grown and matured as an organization since its founding. We've strengthened our collaboration with the one and only public school district in our one town, not only to fund those enrichment programs for many years, but also to fund priority initiatives that would have the greatest impact on the greatest number of students. Where there was a need, HEF was asked to help procure the funding. We have brought to our public school students the arts and music. We have supplied them with hardware to include Chromebooks, iPads, and most recently, if you've been in any of the classrooms, large format monitors for the teachers to use and provide instruction. In partnership with the district and the PTO, we have funded field trips so that regardless of family or student ability to pay, all children go on their respective grade level expedition for increased learning. We raise funds so that all Healdsburg public school students might have what they need for an enriching and robust educational experience. So to all of you that have been a part of us, thank you. Now, over the next several weeks, and here comes my pitch, we're a fundraising organization, right? Over the next several weeks, when you see our materials in your students' homework packets this Friday, or in your US mailbox in the next couple of weeks, please take some time and consideration and read through what it is that we do. I could spend another half hour talking about the many programs we've funded since 1985, but I won't go into that because we want to hear from our candidates. But the materials that we will send out to you really detail what it is that we're going to be doing this academic year and how you can become a part of our success and making student experience wonderful. We are one public school district in one town, right? Together, we can achieve much. And our public schools can become the envy of all schools in Sonoma County with your help. That said, we have a group of individuals up at the dais who are campaigning hard to be a part of our community as school board members, and I promise we're getting very close to hearing from them. But now, with thanks and appreciation, I would like to introduce you to a good friend of HEF and the Healdsburg Unified School District. This is our facilitator for the evening. She was once an executive with ABC News, So you might say she knows how to ask the hard questions. She's a wonderful friend of the community, helping not only Healdsburg schools, but many others in measurable ways. When she left ABC News, she pursued her academics further, going into education policy, so she consults and counsels districts around the country, and we're lucky that her home is here in Healdsburg and we get to benefit from her. She has teaching coursing through her spirit, and we're grateful to her for what she's going to help us with tonight. So without any further ado, please help me in welcoming Mimi Gerbst.
Thank you very much, and thank you for coming. And a special thanks to my new best friends, these students, with whom I have spent 2 glorious classes. And if you ever want to feel good about living in this town and having this district, spend a couple of hours in this class, because it is quite something. I'm just going to run through the rules so that everybody knows the lay of the land. We will introduce each candidate, and he or she will be able to give a 2-minute intro, and then I'll ask them the first question, and then the rest is up to the rest of you. The questions can either come by you stepping up to the mic. If you're not comfortable, I've already received some written questions. Feel free to give the AAUW members if you have them and you don't want to come up to the mic. And thank you for helping us out today. And mostly thank you for registering people to vote. Each candidate will have a minute to answer the questions, excuse me. Every candidate will answer every question. And what we'll do is we'll rotate who gets the question first. And at this point, I just want to stop and ask all of you, if you would prefer for me to refer to these people by their first names, raise your hand. By their last name, raise your hand. So first name, would you like me to refer to them by their first name? Excellent. Okay, thank you. I only ask because I want you to make sure to recognize them on the ballot, but you look for their first names. As I said, we have some students asking questions. They are really smart questions and really well thought out. So I want to make sure all of these questions get asked, so we'll sort of rotate person from the audience, person from the audience, so they all get their questions asked. All of the questions and answers will be available to everyone in English and in Spanish. If anyone has trouble hearing or understanding anything, please stop us so we can clarify it. If there is a question that is asked that is based on incorrect information or unclear information, Chris, the soup, has volunteered to clarify everything, so we're all operating on truth as best as we can. And at the end, each candidate will have one more question for me and then closing remarks. We've got 2 hours. I've got some questions here. If everybody's ready, we'll get started. So, Rose, take it away. I want to ask you to introduce yourself, and then when you all do that, I have a question for each of you. And also, when you introduce yourself, please also say your name, because not everyone can read your.
How about now?
Excellent.
Oh, that's completely different. Although I can talk really loudly, so I might be able to just project. But my name is Rose McAllister, and I am a mom in the district. I have 2 kids, one in 2nd and one in 3rd at the charter school, and one starting kindergarten next year. So we are here in the district for the long haul, and last year I got elected to the Charter Governing Council, and I went from being a regular parent volunteer to getting more involved in all of the school's issues and starting to really learn about some of the bigger and more complex things that are facing the district. And I felt like we were really missing the voice of a younger person and a mom, and I'm not actually that young, but my kids are young and starting in their their studies. And we are very committed to public education in our family, and we have invested in this system with all of the love and energy and resources that we have. And that's what brings me to this table today, is that I would like to continue to pursue having a voice in school issues that comes from sitting in the classroom, watching the teachers teach, knowing the students by name, knowing them personally, and understanding how the bigger issues impact the kids that I know from the classroom and the teachers that I know from watching them do their work. So my professional background is in communication and government relations, and so prior to staying at home with my kids, that was what I did. My last job was working for a corporate PAC. Before that, I worked for a nonprofit doing community relations. So what I don't know about education, I feel really capable of learning, in a reasonable period of time. And I really think I would love to see the district continue to grow in ways that are positive and respectful for all of the children, really meet all of their needs. And I think that's a delicate job that's going to take many voices from around the community, and I would just really like to be one of those voices. And that's all. Thanks. That was probably more than 2 minutes. That was more than 2 minutes, probably.
Dennis is up in front giving the sign, and they have to stop. And I want to make sure all of you know Dennis could be in your face with the time. Pia.
30. You need a Sharpie.
Hi. Is that on? That sounds so weird. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming out. It's glad to see so many faces. I was looking at the video from 2016. I think 10 people came to that forum. I would say we're easily about 50. So, yeah, rock on. That's great. I'm Pia Banerjee, and I will need Dennis's sign because I tend to either talk too much or too little. I am a mom of 2 children, one of whom just graduated this past June, is on her way to New York University, and a sophomore who is still here at the high school. We've been living here for 15 years, excuse me, and I've been an active volunteer in all of those years at the school level, school functions, school events, and non-school events. My other hat is I am an educator. I started out teaching special education in New York City, then met my husband and followed him cross-country to California and started working I got my doctorate in New York as a child psychologist and have been working here in Northern California as a school psychologist and special education administrator. And the reason I want to run is because I am a passionate advocate of public education, and I'm very, very devoted to this district, and I would like to be part of a group of people that continues to support its growth and its excellence. And I believe with my expertise and my knowledge and my devotion, I can be a good person on that team. Thank you.
Hello. Hello. My name is Donna Del Rey. I am an incumbent on the school board. I have been on the school board for 6 years. I was appointed for my first 2 years to fill a spot left vacant by a trustee who had to move out of the district, and then was reelected 4 years ago. And I have to say, there was no forum 4 years ago because not enough people were paying attention. Even though I was kind of asking for a forum, there wasn't. And it was actually the first time in many years that there was even an election because nobody was running and incumbents were just automatically continued in their roles. So I think this is a wonderful progression, and I am very happy that more people are engaging in this process, more people are running, and more people are paying attention, and I think that is a very good thing for our school district and our community, so thank you. I've lived in the district for 22 years. I have 2 children. They both went to Alexander Valley School and then matriculated into the junior high and the high school. My son just graduated from University of Oregon and is working at the Napa Valley Register, which is kind of fun, local. My daughter's a sophomore at Chico. And when I first joined the board, I really wanted to get involved and to be a part of the decision-making and the planning and the strategy of the district. I've always been pleased with the education that my children have gotten in this district, but there's always room for improvement. And along those lines, I'm very proud of the work that we've done in my tenure on the board for the last 6 years. But again, there's more work to be done. There's never not work to be done, and changes to make and improvements to make. And so I am very much looking forward to serving another 4 years and assisting with that work. So thank you.
I'm on. Hello, I'm Mike Potmacell. I'm a candidate for the school board. I'm an educator, and I'm driven to support educational systems to be the best possible for students, teachers, administrators, parents, and community at large. I've been all those things. I've been a student, a parent, I was a teacher, a principal, district office administrator, and a school volunteer. It takes all of us working together to reach our full potential as a district. Healdsburg Unified has great strengths, and we can build on those strengths. But our scores are not matching our potential. Let me tell you what I've done in similar situations. As Chief Personnel Officer in San Benito, a district that looks a lot like Healdsburg, we provided focused professional development for teachers, we cultivated parent involvement, and as a result, we moved all student scores up, and we significantly closed the achievement gap. Earlier, as principal, in a state-identified immediate intervention underperforming elementary school, we increased scores there by 225 points. So it is doable, but it's not all about scores. I was also a principal at in a middle class, I guess an upper middle class school. Scores were already way up there. But we converted a 7-8 school to a 6-7-8 school, and we involved the total staff, we involved the total community, and it was very successful. But we wanted more. I wanted more for our kids. So we looked and we said, what else can we do? What else can we involve our students in? We did that, we looked at that, and as a result, we became a California Distinguished School. As principal of this, I plan to draw on my 30 years of education experience in order to increase student scores, to realize the potential of the district, and to establish excellence to make our public schools desirable for all families. Thank you.
The first question for the evening, and I'm going to start. What do you think are the district's greatest strengths, and what do you think are its greatest challenges? And I know
1 minute, 1 minute. Like 5 words. Okay. Greatest strengths are our dedicated staff and really the people who work in the district. I think we have amazing talent here, people who love what they do, and it shows every day. And that's the most important connection there is with those people and the students. I also think one of our strengths is actually our small size. When you look at the way we're funded as a community-funded district, our funding is not dependent on our number of students that our ADA, our average daily attendance. It's based on our property taxes from this area. And so we have a bit more per student to spend, and I think we offer an amazing array of things, activities, enrichment, CTE programs at our high school that are really unique to our district and really make it a district that is in demand.
challenge. Our greatest challenge.
Outcomes, definitely. We have some challenges around our test scores, as Mike just mentioned, that we have been trying to address, or we are in the process of addressing, I should say. There's a lot of efforts going on around the math scores, and really utilizing our teachers to come up with better approaches and better ways to teach and better ways to engage our students. So I'd say that's one of our biggest challenges. And the other is the equity issues that have been really front and foremost in the paper and in conversations around our town. These are things that our community is dealing with and our schools need to deal with. And I'm very hopeful that the results of the National Equity Project will really inform our decisions moving forward and how to make our schools more accessible and equitable. Going
Yeah.
really fast, really fast.
Yeah. Strengths and challenges, please.
Okay, well, the greatest strength I think this district has is in this room. It's the parents who are involved, it's the teachers who are so committed, the administration who's very child-focused. And paradoxically, the greatest challenge is parent involvement and making sure that it's not the same 50 parents that show up for every event, every volunteer, and making sure we reach out to those parents who are too busy working 3 jobs and taking care of families, and making sure that they continue to feel like they are part of this community, this school system, because test scores are only one way. How can it already be 30? Jesus. Test scores can only be one way of measuring student success. Students, like my logo says, are built in I mean, they're grown. They grow from an environment, a soil that's enriched and flavored with whatever they bring in. We have to involve parents in our quest to make each student a successful, functioning, contributing member of our community, no matter what that means. Each student is different, so what their potential is going to be based on what their interests and their organic desires are. But it can't just be based on test scores, and it can't just be based on these incredibly dedicated women and men who are here now, even after the school day, to attend this forum. We have to increase parent involvement, and we have to make sure that we're providing all of our kids with what they need to reach their full potential. I only have 1 minute, so I guess.
Mike? Greatest strength and greatest challenge. I'll get you.
Switched on me. I think our greatest day, I absolutely concur. But I think we have a very dedicated staff that is actively involved in doing the best that they know for our kids. I think also is our gentleman back there, our superintendent, who is open and willing to listen to the community, to the teachers, to seek what he can do to make this school district a better place. It's also community involvement. I mean, I can't name them all because there are so many volunteer organizations that are dedicated to the community, but more importantly, and dedicated to the school itself. The variety of programs that we have. In a high school of, I want to be accurate here, Chris, 550 kids, the variety of programs, this being one, is just outstanding. I'm absolutely blown away. I think the challenges are, how do we meet the needs of all of our students? How do we do that? And that's the question we have to ask. I think we have to develop an understanding of who we're working with culturally, the economic issues, the language issues, so we can understand those kids as they come through the doors, if you will, so we can not just build a bridge there, we can actually be the bridge for those kids when they walk in. The equity issue was mentioned, but again, I think it's about culture, but it's our understanding of a Hispanic culture, a white culture, a culture of low economics. We have to understand that so we understand how to serve our kids. And then finally, I think the challenge is, how do we bring the community in? How do we build a partnership, a better partnership with our community, with our city partners, so that this becomes the focus of the city? I was told not to say this, but I'm going to say it. I know this is a tourist destination. This should be an educational destination.
Wow, it's tough to go last. I'm like, I agree with that and that and that. So many thoughtful things have been said in the last 10 minutes. I think this past week I was lucky enough to tour all of the schools and to meet with the principals and to go to the classrooms and watch the things that are going on. And I think when I think about the strengths of the district, it's what I think about is the kids that are learning and growing and in a safe, beautiful environment with great teachers. And we entrust our kids to this system, and when we can see that it's a positive, 30 seconds really, that it's a positive environment where good things are happening, I mean, that to me is the strength. That's it, come alive to me. And then weaknesses, challenges. I think that we're dealing with a district that's getting smaller and that has challenges, and that those are challenges that we're really going to need to meet in a nimble, thoughtful, comprehensive way over the next foreseeable future. And that really impacts the possibility for programs offered and for the student experience in so many areas. And I think football was front and center, but it really goes for all kinds of things, that the remarkable programs that you see going on here need to have an adequate number of students to serve in order to exist. And I think in addition to the challenges that have already been mentioned, that's one that I would add. I have very strong feelings about moving forward on the subject of equity in an incredibly thoughtful way, understanding that it's a very, very important issue for so many of the children and families in our community, and that as we look to serve everyone, that we look to serve everyone with excellence. And that means meeting the needs of all of our students and also attracting students who might make other choices if they didn't see really, really great programs in front of them. So I think that is definitely going to be a challenge, and one that I don't know the answer to, but that I hope to learn the answer to by being out there, talking to people, working on it meaningfully and bravely. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to add to the greatest strength. These kids are unbelievable. And I have to say, I have the good fortune of going into lots of schools and lots of school districts. This blew me away. So I'm calling on you. Which one of you is asking the first question? Kevin?
Yep. So Rose touched on it. Mine's about electives. Our school's electives are pretty impressive among schools. I think we'd all agree. We have culinary, our journalism class, the amazing advanced digital film class, all stuff that sort of makes students a little happy to get up and go to school and say, I have this class I love, maybe a career I want to go into. So my question would be, how exactly would you put emphasis or focus into classes like these, especially as student population may start to dwindle?
Pia, you want to start?
What a great question, Kevin. First of all, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So if it's working and it exists, I would continue to advocate for it. I think the electives, you're absolutely right. Journalism, digital film, they're incredible. My daughter went through them. I have some favorite girls sitting over there going through them. My son's in digital filmmaking. There's no reason to think about it not continuing, even with declining enrollment and the struggles. I don't know that that's an issue.
Donna?
I echo Pia's thoughts that these programs are highly important. They are motivational for kids. They actually create a bridge for kids who maybe struggle with school or struggle engaging in school, and this is their lifeline to coming to school, is not just the electives, but sports, clubs, leadership, cheerleading, all the different things that we offer beyond what's happening in the classroom. And I think as a board member, it's about keeping that as a high priority, keeping the funding in place for those programs, looking at interest levels of the students. Are these programs still of interest? Do we need new programs or different programs? And how the programs evolve with the students' needs. I have to say my son was very inspired with his journalism program here, which is why he's now a journalist. So I'm a full supporter of this, and that's an important thing for the district too, as the board to support.
again, I think I'll agree with the other people up here. I think electives are so important, and when I came to the high school the other day, thanks so much for your question, by the way. I went to a big high school, 2,400 students when I was there, and we did not have those kind of awesome electives and classrooms that were filled with technology and resources, and I was just so totally impressed, and I believe firmly, and our oldest is only 9, but I walked into the digital film room, and I was like, he cannot wait to get here. He doesn't even know how excited he will be.
I must say, if the evening news can't go on the air there, it can go on the air here.
Right. So it's incredibly impressive. The CASA program is so impressive. I mean, the list goes on, and the resources for scholarships and internships. I mean, I just think it should absolutely be an emphasis for any board member, and we should just keep building on it because it's just one of the many great things that are offered. So, yeah.
What she said, and what she said. I think the real question is, if I understand it correctly, as our enrollment declines, how do we keep the electives? I think we keep the electives that the student wants. I think if kids are signing up for the electives, we keep them. We are on a budget that's basic aid, and I won't go into that. That may be a question later, but we have money coming in. So we have money to build that. Now, are we going to have a class of 2 students? No. But if we have enough, whatever that number is, we keep the electives. I don't think you all know what kind of school you have here. I think maybe you do, but I'm not sure you've been to other schools to really see. The elective program here and the sports, the internship is just outstanding. So we're not going to do away with it. What we do have to look for is what's new, because I don't know tomorrow what's new for you guys to say, oh, I'm really interested in, I don't even know, computer stuff that I have no idea what that's about. So we don't eliminate, we keep, but again, we have to have the sign up as anything else. But I wouldn't worry about losing electives. Nobody's going to kick those out.
So Kevin, you get to hold these people responsible. So if they end up on the school board and they don't live up to what they promised, you get to hold them responsible.
Yeah. Come talk to me.
I'm going to ask if anybody in the audience wants to step up to the mic. I have a bunch of questions, fantastic questions, but I want to make sure that if anybody, would you like to step up to the mic, sir? That'd be great. Thank you very much. You can pick who you'd like to ask the question to first, and then everybody else, or I can do that for you. Me choose?
It doesn't really matter who goes with my question. Okay. My name is Brent Mortensen, and this is only going to make sense, my question, if you know that I worked at the high school for 31 years and was in charge of the drama program, which was an elective, which is now no longer an elective because they turned the stage and the back room into a weight room. So, and I understand Frost Hall is going to become a wrestling room. Ask Christian Solberg, who owns Mustache, the pie store, and is opening up another store in Santa Rosa, which class prepared him for the outside world. So my question to you is, I understand electives are important. How important are the performing arts? And would you tell your son to not quit a play in order to be on an all-star basketball team because of the commitment and the dependability that the other students were wanting in him? Thank you.
Thank you, Brett. Rose?
Sure, I'll answer that. Well, I did drama when I was in high school and junior high school, and my daughter does ballet. And I was shocked when I heard the report of no more drama here. It seems like it's something that is so very, very important. And I know that's kind of the easy answer, but I truly believe that. And I think the performing arts are such an important opportunity for kids, whether they play sports or don't play sports, whether they do other activities or don't do other activities. It's a great way to learn about literature, to be brave, to be on a team, all of those things. So I don't know much about what's stopping it from evolving into what's next in terms of performing arts here, but I certainly am interested in finding out. Thanks.
again, I don't know why drama was taken away, and did you say it became a wrestling, that the stage is now a wrestling or a weight room? Is that what you said? Yeah. I can't imagine why one would be chosen over another. I'm sure there were reasons. I'm sure there were some excellent reasons for that decision. I don't know what they are, and I don't believe as a parent I would ever force my child to choose one over the other, because both are equally important, both develop character, both develop different parts of our brain, and both allow us to become confident and skilled in different areas. So if I had to drive my kid to a all-star baseball and then drive him to or her to a play practice, I would make sure they do that, because to me it's not about choosing one or the other. It's what the child is interested in. And I know that doesn't answer your question, but since I don't know why it happened, I don't know that I can answer how I would ensure it doesn't happen again.
The restructuring, I'll start with that part of the question, of the gymnasiums and the halls is part of the bond work, the money, the tax dollars from the community bond that was the 2 bonds that were passed actually over the past several years. The long-term plan is to turn Frost Hall into the permanent wrestling, and all those things are happening, but the last phase of this is to create a performing arts and multi-purpose theater on campus. So that was always the longer-term plan. Sometimes it's a little painful getting there, just like our soccer team playing away home games for the last 2 years as we are putting together the all-weather soccer field right now. But it is part of the challenge of, building within a finite amount of space and using our dollars wisely. As far as the drama program itself, I don't know exactly why that hasn't been continued. I don't know if it's related to needing a theater, but I feel like drama doesn't need a theater per se, and we also have the Raven and other resources here in town. If it's something the students are interested in and want, we should absolutely look at that and talk about bringing it back. I mean, I agree. Both of my kids did drama with Mort and had a great experience. So, it's a great program. Performing arts is always very important. So I think there's kind of 2 issues there. One is theater access and usage, and the other is the program itself. And thank you.
I've been called a ham, so I like drama. My kids, one was a dancer in high school and still is. One was a trumpet player, played in the orchestra, and my other daughter was in the chorus. So they're all performing artists. I think I would have cringed, I would have jumped up and down if one of those programs were eliminated in the high schools that they went to. I don't know why drama was eliminated. But I'm pleased to hear, and I have seen the plans, that the stage will come back, a venue will be ready for them. And I think what it entails is, do we have a drama teacher, and do we have the interest from the students? And that's the key. So perhaps on your retirement, drama was eliminated, I don't know. But I fully support the performing arts. I absolutely agree that is a venue for so many students, so many shy students and introverted students, where they get to come out and do, whether, again, it's dancing, singing, talking, or whatever. And I'd also say you could have drama right here in a small theater with a small troupe. But again, who is the drama teacher? Who is the instrumental teacher, the dance teacher? But I'm all for it. I think it's great.
Welcome. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Healdsburg, and I took drama when I was a freshman, and I work for Christian Solberg. I've worked for him for 2 years, so those are my connections. Okay, my question is, why is everyone so mad about football being gone when there are a lot of other sports here, and nobody's mad about, well, except for Mr. Mort, nobody's really mad about the lack of performing arts and the lack of anything like it. And performing arts pose no risk of concussion, which is something to consider. Putting so much money into everything but the performing arts discourages kids from seeing it as something that would be encouraged or a possibility, and makes them scared to speak up, to say that they want that. And makeshift drama, as you guys have suggested, I tried to start a playwriting club last year and work with the Raven. It just was really hard to do. If it was made more accessible and possible for us, I think you would be surprised at how many kids you would have participating in it. Thank you.
I just want to make sure that any misinformation out here. That's all I just want to make sure.
It's a little late for that, Mr. V. That's all right.
I just think I want to just comment that as much as we all want, and as easy it is to say that we want everything, and we might be able to have everything, there are always difficult choices in running a school district and running schools and being a board member. So I just want to say that we all want everything. We all think that we're rich enough to have everything. We all think we should have everything, and yet there are some always very hard decisions for these people to make. So as much as everybody wants everything, in any school district, there are very difficult choices to make on what you can have, when you can have, what you should have, what you don't need to have. So I just want to make sure you know that as much as everybody would like it, I think we should everybody should know it's not ill-intentioned that we don't have it. And it will come back. Em, do you have a different question? Okay, great. And thank you for your...
Yes, kind of unnecessary, but it's okay. All right. My question is, how do you currently make yourself familiar with students' opinions on the current state of their school and school district? And specifically, when's the last time you were at one of the schools in the district talking to students?
Rose, you have a good answer.
Well, I volunteer every week in both of my kids' classes.
And they are, just remind us again, your children.
Our daughter is in 2nd grade at Healdsburg HES, HCS, and our son is in 3rd grade at FMC, Fitch Mountain Campus. So I have a lot of contact directly with the elementary school students, certainly the kids in my kids' class, but also the kids that we just know from around town, because as a parent of young kids, when we go to the park, and actually I would say this is one of the great strengths of our district, is that we are a community school, and when we go to summer camp at Park and Rec, when we go to the pool, when we go, to any sporting event, when we go everywhere, we know the kids that we see there. And I grew up in kind of a big place where that wasn't a possibility, and I would say that my view is that that is a treasure, and that would inform everything that I would do on the board, is knowing the children that we're talking about impacting personally. And especially on Fridays, in my daughter's class, I help with reading, which means that I'm sitting right next to the kids and we're working together. So, but I also think that during the course of my campaign in the past month, I have visited all the schools and talked to the teachers, and I went to a junior high math class the other day, and that was a trip. And I think that knowing the students, knowing the teachers, hearing from the students, hearing from the teachers, being the kind of person that anyone who sees me on the street, in the park, on the sidewalk, walking my dog, feels like they could come right up to and say exactly what they think and feel about what's going on. I feel like that's one of the real strengths that I would bring to the board, is that I have a great network of students and families that I already know who feel really comfortable talking to me. So and I would be super active in getting out there to see what's going on for myself and getting to know as many people as I can. So.
Mike, I'm going to jump to you on this one.
First part of the question is, how familiar am I with students? Is that correct? I think, again, it's getting into the schools. I have to be honest, this year I have not been on campuses yet as a principal. I thought I don't want to get on campus during the month of September because that's when you're running around as a principal, that's when you're running around as a teacher. And I said, so the first week in October, well, lo and behold, I was told all the principals are gone this week, so next week I'll be in the schools. But as I've been walking neighborhoods, I have met students and I've met their parents and I've asked them what's going on, what school are you in, who's your teacher, et cetera. And I'll be honest with you, they're all excited about what's happening. Some are quite shy when they have this big tall guy standing in front of them. But it's exciting to talk to the kids. And I look forward to getting out there. I want to be, I will be on the campuses very frequently, hopefully not too much, but I will be out there a lot because I want to know what's going on. I want to hear from the kids. I want to hear from the teachers.
Donna.
Well, I will admit it was a lot easier when my kids were students here because I got earfuls all the time. But now that they're graduated, I'm a big believer in the student voice and in finding ways for the students to find their voices and provide input and feedback to the board and to the schools. And a couple examples of this are, I can't see my notes, are monthly tours that Chris offers the board to go out and visit campuses, visit the classrooms, visit the different grades, different programs that are happening. We were visiting when the school was under construction and looking at technology and how it was all working in the classrooms. I also really make a point of getting to back to school nights and other types of open house type arrangements, being involved with the internship presentations and actually hosting interns at my business. Last but not least, one of the favorite things I've done on my term on the board was, I don't know if this was my favorite. I was the board president when our last superintendent left the district, and we were chartered with hiring a new superintendent, and it was a little stressful and challenging, but obviously we ended up with our great superintendent. But one of the things I really wanted to hear from was not only the community forums, but the students. And so I made a point to go to every government civics class with our teacher, Eric O'Connor, and hear from the seniors. I wanted them to, it was election year, I wanted them to be a part of the process and to ask questions and understand the role of the board. And I was thinking about that this week and wondering if I could challenge all of the candidates to maybe try to get into one of Eric O'Connor's civics classes and meet with those seniors and talk to them about the process and how important it is to vote.
Pia.
Well, I've been fortunate in having my daughter and her friends be very vocal, and on being a listening ear when they sit around my kitchen, talk and yak, or we go places together. I have my son who can now report with his friends what's going on. Like Mike, I haven't yet, I work full-time as a educator and school psychologist in schools also, so I'm like Mike, know that September is not the time to ask principals, can I have a tour? Can I sit in on a class? Because that's just, people are just coming together. So I do have an appointment next week with Erica McGuire. Will have another appointment to do a tour of HES. And my intention, and I believe I can do this. I think you just hold it up as soon as I start talking. That's what it feels like.
It does feel like that.
It does feel like that. Is to participate. I didn't know there were tours, but that was going to be my intention anyway, that once a month, I work 4 days a week, so I always have Mondays, and that would be my dedicated day to do school board related activities and participation, and get to know the schools that I don't know as well as I do the high school and the junior high. I only know those because I had students who went there, and I was on the the PTO there at the junior high, and here I volunteer for just about everything under the sun. I'm sure time is up. Yes.
I'm going to ask from the audience, and if not, I'm going to use one of these questions. Great, thank you.
Hello, I'm Brian Summer, and I've had children in all levels of education here, and most recently a graduate, two still one in the high school, one in the junior high. But my question for you is, how familiar are you with integrated math? Are you for or against it? And what is one thing you would do to improve it for the students and the faculty's experience? So if you're not familiar with it at all, maybe ask Mr. V for a brief explanation. Thanks.
Or ask the students, because they have Pia, are you familiar? Wait, let's just make sure, are you familiar? Okay, so Chris, can you just give a brief explanation? Right up here. Or the students can, but you don't want to hear from them, so. No. Yeah. Oh, we have a guest appearance tonight.
I would actually love to hear from the seniors are ahead of integrated.
We are going to.
I'll try to make it quick. Good evening. I'm the Director of Curriculum and Instruction for the district. Integrated math is what's called for in the Common Core State Standards. It basically aligns us with what's called for in the international standards. Rather than students taking Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2, they take Integrated Math 1, 2, and 3. So the concepts are integrated throughout the 3 years rather than what most of us learn, the example I always give. You solve for X in Algebra 1, but you had to wait until Algebra 2 to learn what that meant. So the idea is to integrate all the concepts over 3 years.
And Erin, before you go, just factual. Is this curriculum determined by the state, or have we as a district chosen this curriculum?
So two things. We choose both the curriculum and we choose whether to do the more traditional Algebra, Geometry, Algebra 2, or integrated curriculum as we have. So that is a local decision.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, sure. We're going to hear from the teachers the candidates first, and then we talked about math today with the journalism class, so I'm going to let them wrap it up. Who does know about it? Because it's fair to, start with somebody who does know.
I don't know that I can say I know about it. I guess what I can say is I've experienced the confusion and difficulty that both my kids had participating in the IM classes. I know I was helpless to help them because I had very traditional, algebra, geometry, trig, pre-calc, calculus. I think, Erin, you just gave the best explanation I've had about what integrated math is. I don't know where you just went to, but I couldn't have explained that. And Brian's question of whether I like it or don't like it, I'm an old lady. I kind of like what I know, and I kind of like what I can help my kids with. So would I like it to go back to more traditional? Yeah, because then I could participate. Having said that, I think there was a very good reason that Erin articulated about why we chose it, and I support that. I just have to get my ever-weakening brain to wrap those concepts around.
Rose, do you feel comfortable answering this question, or?
I know about integrated math. Sure, I'll take a shot at it.
Great.
I only know about integrated math as the way that it's been explained to me by teachers and administrators as I've been campaigning. So I didn't know anything about it, and I did go to the integrated math 1 class, as I mentioned, on Monday this week, and or Tuesday, sorry. And it was really, really interesting for me to see the way that it focused on math concepts instead of kind of lecturing about information. And I can say personally that I used to find math lectures mind-numbing, and what I saw in this classroom was incredibly collaborative and loose. And when I spoke to the teacher about it at length afterwards, the way that she explained kind of the holistic approach to math concepts and the ways that those would continue to apply as the kids progressed in their studies, it was really interesting to me. So I was kind of equally perplexed and interested, but that's better than just being perplexed, which is what I was when I did math when I was younger. You know, I think it's interesting that it's something that's been adopted internationally, and my understanding is that about half of the school districts in California use integrated math. It's definitely something that I'm super curious to hear what the students have to say about it, especially since they've been here during the transition. And you know, also math scores are probably one of the greatest difficulties countywide, statewide, and here in this district. And I applaud anyone who's trying to come up with a good solution for raising the math scores. And you know, I'd be super interested to continue to learn more about it going forward.
Thank you. Donna, you were obviously part of approving this curriculum at some point.
Yes,
in your role
as part of the Common Core standards. It took me a while to wrap my brain around it too, and what really helped was I got to go on some visits to other schools as part of the math. It's called an innovative design team, and it's primarily teachers, but also administrators and Erin, and I was able to go visit schools that have similar demographics to ours, but way better math scores. And it was part of the research that the team did to look at how we can improve our program. So, and it was fascinating to see how much language there is in it. It's not rows and rows of multiplication tables. It's a lot of describing your solution, which is really hard. And I'm kind of a math geek, and it's really hard. But the idea is a better understanding of math concepts, so that because there isn't just one way to solve problems, and it really does allow kids to get to a point of understanding math in their own way, and that there isn't really a wrong way. And to me, it's a really exciting way to think about math, because math can be scary, and people have a bad experience, and then they hate it, right, for the rest of their lives. And so I'm hoping that what comes out of our IDT, with the results of that and our changes to our pedagogy and the way we're engaging our students in math is really a positive thing. I do think it's been a not easy process to convert over to the Common Core and to IM, and I give our teachers a lot of credit, because it's a lot of work to change entirely how you're teaching something, especially a subject like math. But I hope that the IM approach is really going to be a better way, and Common Core not only affects high school, it also affects the younger grades. So hopefully kids are going to have better understanding and really engaging in math concepts all the way up through high school.
Mike.
I recall reading about integrated math and trying to understand what it was, but basically, and thank you, Erin, for explaining, my concept was that it's concepts versus algorithms. And I think when you switch that mode of instruction and that mode of learning, it's a whole new world. And you really have to go back and begin. Now, if we start with juniors, et cetera, but you really begin that obviously in the early stages. So our minds, if you will, or our kids' minds really begin to grasp that they're looking at concepts, not just numbers, not just algorithms. And so your question about, so what do we do to improve it, or how do we fix it, how do we make it better? And all I can say, and that's the answer, is we keep looking. What else do we do? What research can we bring in to find out how do we provide better instruction? How do we find better programs, if you will? We ask the kids, and again, as they, my experience always was, am I getting through to you as a teacher? And kids would say, and I would say things, and somebody would explain it, and I'd say, well, yeah, that's what I said. And the kids would go, no, you didn't say that. So you try to ask the kids what their understanding is, but again, it's a whole new curriculum, it's a whole different way of looking at things, and it is hard to wrap our heads around it, particularly when we go in one direction. But it does support the Common Core, and I think it's a good way to go, quite honestly. I wasn't very good at algorithms.
Erin, I just want to ask one question. How many years have we had integrated math? Third year. did you want to? Okay. Kevin as a guinea pig.
So I've been in the IM program since freshman year when it was implemented 3 years ago. I've known it as it's a program that the teachers have said puts more emphasis on the students figuring it out themselves. They give you a problem and maybe even send you home that night with that problem, and the students have to figure out the answer themselves, which can be good. I've found it pretty frustrating. A lot of people will not find the answer and get really frustrated and maybe have a hard time staying engaged in the class, because a lot of it is you have to be really engaged, you have to be really focused to sort of get into this figure it out yourself mentality. As we get into junior year, a couple friends of mine have been noticing that it's behind when it comes to SAT prep. As we start preparing for the SAT, a lot of the math skills that kids in the IM2, or not IM2, Algebra 2 classes have learned, or in the geometry classes have learned, are almost barely being touched on in the integrated math program. So I'd say those are the 2 points that I've noticed.
Can I just clarify this? Do you think integrated math better prepares you for the SATs or does not prepare you as well? I'm sorry.
I would personally say it does not as well, because the SAT has a lot of like what would you do in this, what is the correct answer to this, what is the correct answer to this formula, what formula would you use to solve this, whereas IM more takes the angle of here's a word problem, now go home and think about that for an hour and a half and use these techniques to figure it out, and that's less a standardized testing.
Just one sec. I just want to make sure. Did you want to add? Nailed it. Okay. Pia.
I just wanted to add, I thank you for bringing that up, because I think that is the issue. For me, the concern always was not what my kids were doing, but kids who have language issues, who have difficulty processing in language. And I guess I'm thinking of my subgroup or my specialty in special education, but how are those students going to make sense of trying to process the language to get to a response? How are kids going to find out about a concept without being directly taught? And that to me was, and I understand, Aaron, that this is being rolled out, and as kids go through it from K on, of thinking this way, it will, by the time they get to perhaps freshman year, sophomore year, it will become more habitual. They will know how to think that way. But for kids in this transition period, I can see enormous challenges. And Kevin, I have to tell you, Annapurna felt the same way. My daughter felt the same. She was not prepared for the SAT math taking IM. She had to do extra work in order to be able to try to do well on the SAT math.
Audience.
Hi, my name is Lillian Fonseca, and I'm a teacher here at the Healdsburg Unified School District since 1984. So I've been around for a while. You do the math. I can't. I never took IM either, so anyway. I've heard most of you state during the evening that you believe that we teachers are a vital and important part of HUSD, and we are. I guarantee you that. But what I'd like to ask each of you is, how can you ensure that the voices of teachers not only will be heard, sought after, but their concerns and what they say will actually be taken into account when making decisions for our district?
Thanks, Lily. Great question. Mike, why don't you go first?
When I was assistant superintendent, I was assistant superintendent for human resources. It was never difficult to get teacher input, and I'm not just talking about negotiations. But when we were doing things in the district, we always sought teacher input about whether it was curriculum, whether it was about facilities, whether it was about the safety of our kids. So there's no question that the input from teachers is vital. And I absolutely promise you that I will always seek the input of teachers. You folks are on the line, if you will. You have your feet on the ground. You know what's going on. And not just about around you. You know what's going on in the classroom, and that's what's important. So we want to make sure, the board wants to make sure, I'm sure the superintendent wants to ensure that your voice is heard, so we know what you're thinking. so we have your perspective, which quite honestly is a vital perspective. So no question, you got my input for your input.
Donna?
Yes, definitely. The teacher input is vital to making sure that the decisions we're making for students and for the schools are the right decisions. I mentioned the IDT earlier, and that's a teacher-driven process. It has to be a teacher-driven process if we're going to really make changes from the ground up and understand what's the best way to teach math to our kids and to get better outcomes for those kids. I think of, because I'm going blank here, there was another example I had in my head while you were talking that has just gone out of my head, but the idea is, no, sorry. Classic. I'm thinking about the involvement that teachers have on things like the charter governing councils and all the school governing councils. And I guess I'm curious about if Lillian, if you feel like there isn't that kind of input, like why not? Like where isn't it going? We have processes for through the teachers union for certain processes for certain complaints and various issues that follows. The board acts as sort of a final arbiter of those types of things, but I'm curious about kind of where the question's coming from, and are there certain areas that you feel that we're not getting your input, and how, then let's talk about ways that we can do that. Oh, I know, I was going to say that the teachers have to buy in. I mean, we can't just put a program together without buy-in from the teachers. The teachers have to make those programs happen and have to believe in those programs. That's what I was going to say.
Pia?
I guess I too am curious about the background of your question. You and I served together for 2 years on the PTO at junior high school. I feel like we're both very collaborative people. We are good at communication, the key elements of working together, which is what a school district is supposed to do. But I am concerned at the question because I would like to think that you do feel, you and Ms. Bingham and Mr. Flores, and I don't know what other teachers are here, all feel like you can participate and you do have years that you can ring up or email or call or chat or ask for a meeting anytime, and I would be very responsive to that. I mean, that's just the way, I'm joking, just the way that I work. So I am curious, and if it's something that is an issue, I would like to explore that more, like Donna said, and make sure that avenue is more open and accessible.
Bruce?
Well, I'm sort of going to give the same answer everybody else gave, which is to say that I have a very sort of visceral and practical experience of what the teachers do every day and watching them and the way that they bring it to the classroom day after day after day with so much caring towards the children and real excellence in the work that they do, even under difficult circumstances. And those are many different kinds of difficult circumstances, and that they are people who help and work to really provide for our children's future. And I don't say that kind of lightly or as a soundbite. I really believe that that's true, that every day they show up ready to go. And it's a big, big deal and something I deeply respect. And I think in this case, I have a real advantage over the other people in the panel because my day is so intertwined with the teacher's day in some ways. And so I can even hear about the little things and understand maybe better how the bigger policy decisions truly impact what's going on in the classroom. And I also just think on a personal level that I'm the kind of person that people feel like they can talk to honestly, and in this setting, that really helps because I feel like teachers have issues that arise that maybe don't rise to the level of this is something that I would report, this is a problem I have, but maybe there's a new policy or a new way that something's happening and it's impacting what's going on in the classroom in a meaningful way, and whether they have the sort of time and capital to follow through with a complaint about that issue is different than really expressing to someone who has a little bit of power over it that it's not working or that there's some way that it could be changed. So I hope that's not too vague, but I think that's based out of my own experience of being in the classroom, and I would, if I am a trustee, I will continue to take that with the utmost seriousness. So.
Thank you. I'm going to start asking some of the questions that have been sent up here because I want to make sure that we asked you, we told you you could do it this way, so I want to make sure we validate that. One question is, what things can the board do to encourage and entice students and families that are currently choosing private schools to come to our school district? Mike, do you want to start that one?
I think we need to communicate. I think one of the things we don't do well here is communicate to the community, yes, Chris, we don't, community, all the things that is going on here. We have so many dynamite things happening in the school district that the community doesn't know. People in the community, people outside of the community. They only go by hearsay. So what I believe we need to do, and I'm not sure PR is the right word, but we need to have public relations, stronger public relations in order to make sure that people know all the good things that are happening. We are better than the charter schools that I've seen. We are better than they are. People don't know that. They'd rather spend $20,000 or $40,000 and send their kids off to another school because they think it should be better. So I think we need to get out and advertise what's going on. The good things, we need to tell people where we're going. And if we make it, we need to let them know that we have. And if we haven't made it, we need to let them know that we haven't. But these are the steps we're going to do in order to make that goal, whatever that may be. So I think just communication, get out there, do some good PR.
Donna?
I actually definitely agree with Mike. I think, and having been on the board for 6 years, we've had this conversation many times about how do we get the word out? How do we talk about all these great things that are happening? And we've even talked a little bit about maybe bringing on someone to help with PR, and then we can never justify spending the money on that because we have important things, other things to spend that money on. So very open to suggestions for how to continue to do that. We are not a private school, and we just aren't. So and when I look at the glossy brochures about private school options out there, that's not something we can do or compete with on that level. But I agree. I think the more people know about what we're doing here and the great things that are happening, and I actually think this is kind of already shifting. Anecdotally, I think people are choosing to keep their kids in the district more and more. And again, anecdotally, I don't have any data around this, but that people are choosing to keep their kids in the district. Maybe they'll switch over at 7th grade or 9th grade or whatever, or just make that decision right up front in kindergarten. So, yeah, that's.
Rose?
Well, I'm going to come at this question from a little bit of a different angle, which is that because my kids are on the young side and my kids attended Healdsburg Montessori School, where the students who leave from preschool and go to an elementary school tend to divide up pretty evenly between Sonoma Country Day, the Healdsburg School, Alexander Valley, West Side, and our school. And I have listened to endless conversations about making that grueling choice about where to send your kindergartner. And I have witnessed staggering amounts of misinformation and choices based on everything that you can possibly imagine, from, true deep values about public life to what social group you'd like to choose for your child and your own family. And so I feel like I have a real window into this issue on a personal level with many of my friends. But I basically agree with everything that Mike said. I think that that communication is a key part of it, that if people had a better understanding about what was going on in our schools, that they would really think of them as a viable choice if they were also considering private school. I think that they really do need to go where we're going, to know where we're going, and to know that even if we look forward to some changes and evolutions and what the program offerings are, that they can depend on the fact that their child is going to get a great education here, and that they're going to be in their community school with their peers, getting to know their friends and neighbors, and being educated along with them. And I feel really passionately that we need to make some big moves to talk to those families, because I believe that the resources that those families bring, financial, personal, everything, public, it's a rising tide carries all boats. And I just think that this is something that we need to take some deliberate action about, whether that means using scarce resources for a public relations professional. That maybe isn't, the best choice, but I think that this is something that we need to be addressing in a thoughtful way going forward.
Pia, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I guess I feel that parents are entitled to choose where they want their kids to go to school. I don't believe that I need to, convince my friends to come here. My kids went to West Side, and there were very similar conversations after 6th grade about where to go. Some of them couldn't come to this district, although most of them wanted to, but they didn't live here. Having said that, I think we should all talk up what great school system we have, every one of us, whenever we can, because we do. We are a public school, and I don't think we should compete with private schools. I don't think that's our job. Our job is to make sure we give each student in our system the best education we can. And I think we're doing a really good job with that, based on my experience at the junior high and high school. And I will hopefully get to know more about HES and Fitch Mountain. So I guess I'm sort of not really answering the question, but I don't, besides talking up what a great experience my kids are having and my kids' friends are having, encouraging us all to do the same, I don't know that I'd get too involved in persuasiveness or PR. So.
Following up on the earlier school on the lower grades, what is your understanding of how, especially in the lower grades, the district is working on helping English learners come up to grade level now that the accelerated English program has been discontinued? I think there's two parts actually to that question. One is overall, and then specifically the AE. So I think we should try to address those as sort of two questions. But you still only have a minute, and you should speed it up. So, Pia, do you want to start?
Okay. This is a little bit of a soapbox, so I definitely will need that sign up sooner rather than later. One of the things that I've struggled with throughout my career as an educator and various guises is ensuring that kids who come in, and it's not just EL, equity has so many, it's such a multifaceted thing. I really will need that. It's such a multifaceted term. There's socioeconomic, as Mike and Donna referred to before. There's cultural. I'm the daughter of an immigrant. I came here from India when I was 9. My mother never went to any school events. She always wore a sari. I was mortified to be seen with her at a certain age. All the things that, immigrant kids go through, I went through. I grew up learning 2 languages. There was inequity, even though we were educated when we came here, there was inequity in how we were seen, how we were perceived. And I'm going to tie this back. But I think that what I really want to ensure as a member of the board is any program we put in, whether it's English language, whether it's how to improve at the younger levels, access to literacy and fundamentals of reading, it be research-based and it be based on proven success. I'm sure, Erin, again, you do an incredible job looking into these programs, but I also know that certain programs work better with certain populations than others. And I'm not going to go into specifics because my 30-second is going to be waved at me twice. But I just want to say, when we think about access to educational opportunities, please remember it's a very complicated question that cannot be answered in 1 minute. But I'm happy to have this discussion with each of you in another forum, because I have lots of ideas.
Thank you. Mike.
I think Pia nailed it on the head, or hit the nail on the head, or whatever the expression is. I think that, just speaking of language, what works is the question. Is it research-based? Is it applicable here? Whether it's about language, whether it's about culture, whether it's about economics, whatever the difference is, we need to be sure that we do our job as professionals. Go out and look, do the research, go out and visit other programs, look and see what's working, and see if it happens here. See if it's a good program that will work here for us. I can go off on the equity piece, and our kids are all kids. They all come out of the womb as just individuals. And whatever in the first 4 or 5 years of life happens, and then they show up on our doorstep. We have to take them for where they are. We have to understand that it is our job as professionals to be there for them, and they should not have to come to us. They should not have to come to us knowing how to learn from us. Our job is to figure out where they are, meet them there, whether it's language, whether it's economics, whatever it may be. We need to meet them there and be there for them and teach them where they are.
Donna?
I love the words here. This is really good. And I also want to clarify, and please correct me if I'm wrong, what we're changing is the program. We've shifted the English language learners into a general program that's a blended learning model. The English language learning portion of that is still an AE-based curriculum, and actually they use the same curriculum in Windsor and Santa Rosa, so that curriculum is actually staying, but the program has definitely changed this year into what we call blended learning. So the students are in classes with other kids that aren't English language learners, and that's the big change. So yeah, but I totally agree with what I'm hearing from both sides of me here, and I have to say that our small district allows us to give each child attention and to understand what their needs are and to follow them through once they've, if we're talking about English language learning as the hurdle, once they've overcome that hurdle, we're tracking them. We're making sure that now that they have the English language mastery, that they're continuing to thrive in the district with their other classes. And so again, I think we're really in a wonderful position to really look at each child and the needs of each child and to theoretically craft a plan and a pathway forward, granted within the constraints of our district and what we offer, but to really understand what are the hurdles for that child that might be different than for this child. And that's a great place to be right now.
I'm really interested in everything I've heard so far about this question. I think I don't have a lot to add, except that I would say that as we transitioned, as the schools transitioned from accelerated English to blended learning, that there has been some difficulty in communicating exactly what that transition is for the children that are involved in that transition. And I imagine as well from the parent standpoint that some of the parents may have had in mind that their children would be really spending quite a bit of time learning English. And so I think that this is something that has to be a very, very deliberate and high priority issue because, you know, there's a lot of students in our town that need to be proficient, and that's what opens up the door for them to enjoy all of these things when they get to high school and before that as well. And I know even in my My son's second grade classroom last year, there were 4 students that were reclassified and came into the charter school, and it was just terrific. And I think those are the kind of results that we would love to see, is that everyone is together and everyone is able to work together. So that's really all I have to add.
I think the students have. Sydney.
Okay, so we have a table here representing the students, which I think is really great and unexpected. I wanted to add on to Emma's point a while ago when she said that we like to be involved and we like to be able to talk to you guys. In the future, this is not a question, by the way, in the future we definitely want to know that you guys are always accessible and not just in an ivory tower only communicating to like 50 parents every week and just the teachers. We have opinions, we know what's going on in our school, and we like to be in the loop. But my question for you is, what do you think is the greatest limitation that the students face? Not the parents or the district, but what the students face, and how would you go about remedying that?
Yes,
greatest
that
limitation.
students face.
Do you mean all of the students, like K through 12, or are you thinking specifically about?
Maybe just what is unique to our district that is limiting?
Okay.
I'm going to have Rose go first this time, okay?
This is where I think I have a distinct disadvantage, because I am not an educator and I have not spent a lot of time in all the different districts really digging into kind of what the greatest successes and greatest difficulties of other districts are. And so it's hard for me to like answer that question directly, but I would be super curious what you guys think the answer to that question is. And I would be happy to just give you all my cell phone number and you can call me and tell me what you think. I just, I wouldn't mind being a regular and hearing how you guys are doing and what's working and what isn't working. And I'll be that way going forward.
Pia.
I do want to be very accessible, not just to you guys at that table and the high school, but the junior high and the other schools as well. I think from what I hear from my kids' friends and my kids is it's great that Healdsburg is a small school district. It's not so great that Healdsburg is such a small school district. And I think it's a double-edged sword, frankly. And I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Sydney. I think declining enrollment has certainly been an issue for a couple of years now, because it impacts the very things that you guys are interested in, which is sports and school spirit and participation and having a robust student body. So if I kind of conceptualize this answer, not from my point of view, from what I'm hearing from other kids, 14, 15, 16, 17, it would be the size, I think.
Donna?
I don't envy you being a teenager right now. I think it's a really challenging time to be in high school. There's so much pressure to overachieve. Like, haven't you started a business yet? I mean, come on, aren't you guys entrepreneurs? And you have blogs and created Facebook programs and whatever. And you just, that's all we hear about are these overachieving teenagers. One of the things I think we need to always remember is, and this is echoed from some earlier comments, is that we need to create whole people. It's not just about test scores and test outcomes and scores. It's about, are you happy? Are you healthy? Are you taking care of yourself? Are you getting enough sleep? Are you able to live and be a really productive person in our world? We focus a lot on the school board about outcomes and college and career ready and all that, and we have to remind ourselves too that there's way more to this. And just recently had a conversation about this, about the idea that our students should be thriving here. They should be finding their groove. They should be finding their passion. They should be really identifying opportunities for themselves for the future. And yes, having great grades helps with that, helps gives you options, and and you need those building blocks to succeed in life. But there's so much more to it, and this is where I think some of our challenges are: is how do we provide an environment for that here that provides a safe, relatively anxiety-free-ish opportunity for you all to really find yourselves. And I think it's a really hard thing for you all to do in this era.
I think the limitations vary depending on the grade. Imagine a kindergartner coming into school on the first day, the first week of school. Some are very ready, some are very social, some are very shy, and some are very withdrawn. At junior high school, and I was a junior high school teacher, on any given day, there's all sorts of limitations on any given student. Thank you for smiling. But it's true, because you don't know. You're going through those hormonal things, and it's crazy, and one day you're you, and the next day your parents don't know who inhabited you, but they wish they would just take you away. And in high school, you're trying to find yourself. You're trying to build your confidence. So I would say the limitations come around confidence, about knowing yourself, but it's all a process. It's a process of growing. It's a process of being around, hopefully, very understanding adults that can tap you on the shoulder, maybe touch you just on the shoulder just to say, hey, hang in there. I know you're having a tough day in math. This integrated math, it's killing me too, but hang in there. And there's also obviously the social thing. One of the things in a small district is a diversity of personalities, diversity of cultures, diversity of people. We're not going to solve that problem overnight, but I encourage all of you, whatever your limitations are, identify them, own them, and then work with them. Work on your weaknesses and build your confidence.
Did you have something in mind when you asked that question about sort of the limitations? Were you looking for, not an answer, but do you mind if I ask what you think?
No. I have an idea of what the students face here. I think there's a lot of different things. I don't know if I could identify the greatest limitation in terms of what the district specifically here hasn't, what the issues here are. I think Pia kind of hit the nail on the head with enrollment, because that is something that's specific to here. But yeah, it wasn't necessarily for the whole of society, but that is definitely one of the issues that we face here.
Thank you. I'm going to follow this up with somebody who wisely asked this question. So whoever this is, thank you, because you're moving us along. As a basic aid district, do you believe we should allow students to transfer into our district? It's a little bit of a complicated question, because I want to make sure factually being a basic aid district changes the rules for students transferring in. Okay, so there's a myth out there, I think, that if you are a basic aid district, it's harder to come here from another district. Yes? Okay. Yeah. I just want to make sure we have the facts right on this, because it's a little complicated.
Yeah, very quickly, when you become a basic, we don't even call it basic aid anymore, because the state used to give basic aid to the basic aid district, so they give you nothing now. So we're community funded, which means our revenue is generated from property taxes strictly from the Healdsburg Unified School District. As a result of that, our funds are not tied to attendance whatsoever. Other districts, Windsor, Cloverdale, Santa Rosa, they get a per pupil allotment from the state. So every student they attract from an outside community comes with dollars to educate that student. That would not be the case here. So our school board decided that because it's Healdsburg tax dollars, it should go to Healdsburg resident students. Because if we brought in students from other communities, we'd essentially be subsidizing them, and there'd be less money to spend on the students from this community. That was made 12 years ago, 10 years ago. We switched to basic aid 12 years ago now. It's crazy. Almost 12 years ago. Yeah, so we made a decision then. But it does not, being community funded does not dictate that you don't allow transfers. You can choose to do that.
Okay.
So.
Dennis has a quick question.
So it's not an option to become community funded. When you, as a district, generate more revenue per student because of your property tax base, you automatically are put into basic aid community funded status. It's not an option. It's a state mandate.
And I just want to say one other thing, just to clarify what you said. The school board can make a decision to change the way or the times or if we were to accept more transfer students.
Correct.
So that is a board policy. So that is in the hands of the people who are running and the people who are elected, correct?
Correct. Mike, you have a clarification?
My understanding per ed code is that students are to attend the district in which they live.
Right.
Unless a neighboring district, if a parent works in that district and that neighboring district is willing to accept them. So we would, perhaps a parent in Windsor might own a catering business and worked here. That student, if we chose, we could allow that student to come.
But
yeah. We could become a district of choice, which would not be employment related. We can choose to do employment related transfers. We can do regular transfers not related to employment. So it would be a district, a board decision.
So I just want to clarify that we are a small, what this person I think is asking is that we are a small district, we are a basic aid district, and we have as a board, you have as a board made a policy decision not to accept inter-district transfers. So the question now appears to be, how do each of you feel about that decision, and what would you do differently, if anything? Does that sort of clarify it for everybody? Okay. Rose.
So this is such an interesting question, and I think out in the community this is a major question because, well, for a couple of reasons. The first reason is that based on declining enrollment numbers year after year, the projections for what the size of the high school would be when the incoming kindergartners reach their 12th grade year is minuscule compared to what we have now. And my understanding is that based on research and best practices, there's a belief that 500 students is kind of an optimum number for a high school to maintain good programming and, but still fit into that small school category. And based on what's happening right now, that's not a possibility, or based on what can be projected now, which obviously things can change. But with housing prices being the way they are here and other difficulties of just living and being able to afford to live in Healdsburg, I would say even in the years that I've been here, we've seen families have to leave to go to other places, and even families that have deep roots here and families that where the parents work in town, and it's a real source of disappointment and upset, and I think it even can have impacts on real estate prices and people's housing choices. There's a number of reasons why it's a really good idea, in my opinion, for the district to consider letting in some outside transfers as a way to really make sure that our district stays robust, particularly at the high school level.
And do you have, I just want to follow up.
Oh, sure.
Do you have any ideas, and I don't mean to put you on the spot.
No,
I really
go
do,
for it.
Of how you would make that decision? Who would be allowed to transfer? How do you, that's where the trick comes, I think.
My understanding is that it starts with people who are employed in town,
Okay.
and that's where it would begin. I know some schools use lotteries, and anyone can apply, and then you just get a number. And I think we're all familiar with what happens kind of at AVS and other schools where there's kids who want to come there. There's different modes of figuring out who those kids should be. And I think really actually the real sticking point is just going to be how many students those should be, because if you look at basic aid and you look at the overall spend of letting in a student from outside, it is giant. It's basically saying we're going to pay $12,000 a year to have a child come from outside of the community here. And while it seems like the knock-on effect of that is far more complicated than just that one spend, you're talking about school culture, or you're talking about community culture, all those things. I think those are the things that have to be considered. And I also think that the board raised this at the very end of their last meeting, and the community sort of got wind of this discussion, and it is a subject that people feel very, very strongly about, especially people who remember when the high school was a much bigger place with more things going on. So,
With a good football team. Pia. Thank you, Rose.
I actually had a question to ask, but I forgot what it was. I think the more we talk about basic aid, the more, or what Chris said,
Community
it's
funding.
community funding, people will understand that the complications about it. And so I'm really glad to hear that everybody's talking about it. Working within the schools at various points, I have some awareness of it. And the only thing I would say is, as much as I really do think that we should have a more robust and higher percentage of kids graduating from our high school, as Rose very clearly said, every dollar that we take away from our kids who are in the district to put into a kid who isn't coming with any source of funding is going to take something away. And we have to make that decision based on information. I think that allowing parents who work here to have their children attend makes perfect sense. But please, we all need to consider what the consequences of that decision will be, because there will be fiscal, programmatic consequences of that. So I think it's great that everybody's talking about it and thinking about it, because the more you guys understand it outside of the school system, the better the board will be able to reflect you. You are who we are supposed to serve. You're the community, you're the parents. We can better serve you when you have a full understanding of what the issues are with all of its complications.
I agree. There's a definitely an educational component here. I was talking to my next door neighbor who's lived in town for 40 years and still under the impression that we're losing kids and we're losing money. And that's not the case. It's kind of the opposite case, right? We bring kids in from outside, we don't lose money, but we have less dollars per student. That said, I agree. I think maybe we're a little overdue of starting this conversation around how small is too small. And how do we start to look at bringing kids in? I want to be ahead of that decision. I don't want to be doing it in a crisis. All of a sudden, we're at 300 kids at the high school. What have we done? We need to be ahead of it and be ready for it. And I think we need to look at capacity. I think there might be some places where, like, we already have the teachers hired. We already have some small classrooms. There might be some obvious ways to bring kids in that are already, we can absorb pretty, not painlessly, like it's painful, but without a lot of revenue disruption. Maybe it's certain grades, maybe it's, there's a lot of ways to do it. And it is doing an analysis, looking at capacity, looking at our dollars and our budget. And it's also looking at policy versus legal. Like, we can't, my son used to play basketball here and he really, really wanted tall players. And it was like, oh, if we could let in interdistrict transfers. I'm like, yeah, there's no guarantee they're going to be really tall, honey. And so you can't pick and choose, right? There's legal issues around that. So we have to be very careful about doing it right and doing it in a way that does maintain a great student culture here. But do it right and not jeopardize anything that we have going on. Because I completely agree that our tax dollars should be primarily for our children in this district. I completely agree with that original decision. But again, now we need to look at how do we adapt that.
It's not allowed to add. I always say that education is not a zero-sum game, that when you have students of different abilities and different types and different styles, it's not a zero-sum game. However, funding is a zero-sum game. You get so much money from our taxes, and that's how much we get. By bringing on more students, it is a less dollar per pupil. However, as Donna was just saying, if you have a classroom with 20 students in it, to add one student, how significant is that? If you have a classroom that has 10 students, if you add 5, how significant is that? So I think these are the things, and these are the conversations that we begin to have now, because our high school is down in the, mid-5s now? So we want to look at that. We want to look and say, as Donna said, I totally agree, now is the time to have that conversation. Look into the future, I believe, that our tax base is going to go up. How many hotels have we just put in, and what are the taxes going to come in on that? So how does that change the numbers a bit? Again, we have to look and see what we want, at what level, and only tall basketball players.
I'm just going to stop here for a minute. There are several questions still left, so I want to know if you want to extend, if you want to stop at 8 o'clock, we can do that. Dennis, you're giving me a signal. Stop at 8 o'clock. I know, we only have 10 more minutes left. We will not get to these questions. I mean, raise your hand if you'd like to extend, and there's no hard feelings. Of course. Absolutely. Oh, very good idea. Thank you. If you give me, I have these questions. Not what? Dennis is keeping track, so. Here's the thing. Let's just try to get through some more, and when we hit 8 o'clock, we will do closing statements, and then I will give these to the woman from AAUW or to Chris. He will type them up. He will give them to each of these candidates, and we will figure out a way to distribute them to each of you.
Excuse me, we just...
You've already asked a question.
Mimi, we just...
Very good compromise. Okay. Is everybody comfortable with that idea? Thank you. Is everybody comfortable with that plan? Okay, so the closing statement is twofold. A, what's your closing statement?
Can't hear you.
A, what's your closing statement? And B, what do you think distinguishes you from the other candidates that you want to have everybody take away from this experience about you? So, Donna, I'm going to start with you.
Okay.
Closing statement.
Closing statement.
What distinguishes you from the other candidates?
1 minute. Closing statement. I have thoroughly enjoyed and been challenged and learned so much from the 6 years I've been on the board. I had not been on a public school board, and I have to say the first year was just absorption and really learning a lot. And it's still learning every time. Every board packet, every budget I'm looking at is still learning and asking lots of questions. I would love to continue to do this. It's very rewarding and meaningful, and I do hope that I'm making a difference. Okay, part 2.
What distinguishes you?
Oh, distinguishes me. Well, I mean, I have 6 years' experience. I do think that has value. And I also, I think we have 4 really, well, I'm including myself. I think we have 3 and me, really wonderful candidates here. Much to choose from. And again, I think that's a really great positive thing for our district and our community. I would say that I think it's good to have a variety of people on a board, and that I am not a professional educator, and I do think there's value sometimes in having a variety of people. And there are 3 educators on the board now, I mean, that are continuing on to their next 2 years of their term, and it's just something to think about with the diversity of the board itself.
Mike?
I'd like to say that being a candidate has given me the opportunity to meet with hundreds of local residents and community leaders to hear their perspectives and their desires, and to let them know how my experiences can move Healdsburg School District and all its participants to the next level. I've been honored to receive the endorsement of many local elected and community leaders. As Donna was just saying, you have 4 people here willing to give up their time and their energy to run for 2 seats on the board. This is what I love about Healdsburg. I believe that I have the right combination of skills and proven experience to do what the Healdsburg district needs at this time. Having been an assistant superintendent, I've read the board packets. I'm ready to go. I understand what a board needs to do. And as an educator, I am ready to do what's best for our kids, for all of our kids. Thank you. And thank you all for being here.
Pia.
I just want to say you guys have your work cut out for you, because this is an incredible panel of people running for the school board. I'm really very impressed. Having said that, I would like to serve on the school board because I want to serve your kids and my kids and their friends and support teachers. As an educator, I want to be in a position where I can listen to the voices of the community, try to reach out to those voices who aren't often heard, and try to represent them to the best of my ability. I am very available on all sorts of media in different ways. And what distinguishes me is, well, hopefully you have a sense of who I am tonight, what I would bring, my passion for education and seeing each child as an individual, listening, collaborating, and communicating with others, which to me is the way that a team of people work for a better good. Thank you.
Rose?
Thanks for coming.
Oh, excuse me, Pia. Thank you, Pia.
Well, I'm also thrilled to be up here with you guys, and this was a really great conversation, and it's great to see so many members of the community from all areas here tonight, so thank you so much. I feel like I am quite distinguished from the rest of the candidates and the people that currently sit on the board, and I've talked about that quite a bit in my comments tonight. And I think when I realized that there was no one who had young children in the schools serving on the board, I felt like I was ready to step up and do that. And if I'm to be honest, I did not realize that the campaigning was going to be so exhausting. No, just truly was going to be a full-time job, and I have the full-time job of taking care of our 3 children already. So it's been a really interesting challenge for me. But I will say this, that when I first set out to do it, I had an interest in doing it. But after hearing from the other candidates and attending many board meetings, I feel like I am a voice that really will be a benefit to the board. That my knowledge base, that my day-to-day life, that the things that I do with myself and the capabilities that I have to understand difficult and complicated problems will be a real use to the group and to the children of our town. And it would be an absolute honor to be elected to this board and to have the opportunity to serve the kids that live here and to help this continue to be such a wonderful place to live with really good opportunities for our kids. Thank you.
This is for all of you. This is for all of you. I have to say, it is indeed a very impressive group of people who really have thought about some of these really tricky issues in our town, and they are very complicated issues. So thank you very much for your thoughtfulness, for the preparation you put in it. Thank you guys so much. We can stay for a little while. Anybody who wants to leave, you should feel free to leave. If there's anybody who wants to stay and get through these other questions, we can do that. And if not, we can write them up. Yes. Yes, one more question. Can we get one more question from the student?
Student question.
Yes.
One more.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so good evening. My name is Juliana, and as we all know, there have been issues dealing with segregation in the charter and elementary school. So my question is, how would you plan on making the charter school more equitable and catering to all the students if you plan on keeping the charter school?
I'm going to start with Mike.
The charter school was set up to provide a model school. To keep our families here in Healdsburg. It's become a model school. The traditional school was set up to provide language instruction for our language learners. And what has happened down the road, as you just said, is a segregation. what appears to be segregation. I fully believe that that was never the intent. The intent was honorable, but the impact down the road looks like segregation. What we need to do is take that model school of collaborative learning and integrate it into the traditional school, and hopefully, quite honestly, down the road, blend those schools together. I happen to know that the collaborative model works well with our Hispanic community. That's how they work. They're family-oriented. They work together. They collaborate together. It's a natural. The language is an issue, but we can work on that. What we have to do is go out and find those schools that we want to model our school after. What pained me when I was hearing about this back in late spring was people were saying things or feeling that they were being insulted because something had happened and finger pointing was happening and then finger pointing was happening. What we need to do is we need to come together as a community. We need to come together as educators. We need to build a solid Healdsburg school district for all of our kids. Get our adult egos out of this. Let's do what we need to do for all of our kids right now. And let's build our program. And then finally, once we build it, let's continue to assess that program to ensure that it's going in the direction we want it to go. What happened is I fully believe this. We kind of ran it and it's like, oh, okay, and then all of a sudden it looks bad. We continue to assess, we evaluate it, we look at it, we assess, we evaluate it, we look at it until we have the perfect school. And I am absolutely confident that this community, with the support that we have in this community, and with the leadership that we have and the teachers that we have, we can do that.
Rose.
I'm a parent of charter school kids, and I'm on the Charter School Governing Council, and I feel like it's given me a real window into some of these issues based on our own experiences. And I agree with Mike that we have unintended consequences that have happened here, and I think we need to change, first and foremost, access so that every family feels that they can choose the charter school for their child. And that doesn't just mean officially having access, but feeling absolutely welcome and understanding that the resources are available for their child, that their child will need inside of the charter school. And I think as we sort of look medium term, because the charter is up in 2 years and there's a lot of thinking that needs to go into it, but I think as we sort of think medium term, we just need to use what we learn about from the equity project that's happening right now and the discussions in town. We need to move forward very carefully and very respectfully of all the people in our town, looking really carefully at meeting kids' academic needs first and foremost, and the needs of the teachers and so on. So I know that's a little bit of a vague answer, but I just think that this is where we need to use really our courage and our intellects and our cooperation to move into whatever's next for the elementary school.
Thank you. Pia?
It's really too bad you didn't ask this at 7 o'clock rather than 8 o'clock, because this is really, you've been trying.
But you still have a pretty good crowd.
It's an excellent question, and I know it's the tip of the iceberg, because it's not just about the charter school and the segregation, but again, the larger concept of access for all sorts of people, not just second language, not just socioeconomic, not just, the farming community or the business community, everybody, okay? We all come in with different levels of inaccessibility and accessibility. So it's not an easy, again, there's no simple soundbite answer. I really appreciated what Mike said, which is that we should take what's working right now in the charter school. We should never throw away what works. We should take what's working, apply it, take components of it, and then since the charter, I didn't know, but the charter is up for review in 2 years, look at ways of communicating to the public the accessibility, because it's not just parents self-selecting to go there, it's also a matter of other parents not knowing that they will be welcome there. So improving the communication and drawing on the strengths and the positiveness of the programs and spreading them out, I would follow a lot of the things that Mike suggested.
Donna,
Thank you.
since you've sort of been at the...
Echoing the comments of the other candidates, I agree. This is it's an opportunity, and it's really a must to look at all of the components of our elementary school system, and to do this in the vein and under the results of the National Equity Project. I think that is going to, it'll be hearing from our community as a whole and understanding what the needs are as a whole, and then from that we can make decisions. I think it's really premature to make any decisions about any of the schools at this point in time, and I have to say the charter school is more than just a name. It's actually a contracted thing, but that said, that's just a piece of paper, and but it isn't something that you just wave your hands and it's a complicated issue. So I think the decisions that we make going forward absolutely have to be informed by the National Equity Project and our goal as a community to bring everybody together.
I want to make sure you get follow-up, since we were a little too late to get the whole... Do you have anything you want to follow up with on that? Are you comfortable with those answers? Do you want to ask a follow-up question?
Hello. Oh, never mind. So, just to follow up, do you think that it would be better if we improved the charter school or got rid of it?
I think we should get rid of anything that's working, but can we make it more accessible to people? Can we improve the way it's presented to our community? Yes. Can that be improved? Yes.
Anybody have a different answer? A different answer?
I think I can't answer that question right now. I think there's a lot more questions to be asked before I could give an answer for that. And I think we need to respect the process and the people and the communities involved while we make whatever decision comes next.
Great follow-up. Okay, I'm going to type up the rest of these questions, get them all to the candidates. Dennis will figure out how to distribute them to you all. They were great.